If you've kept up with recent trends in urban music, you might have noticed one genre coming up again and again. I'm talking about grime, a British genre that's slowly making its way over to the rest of the world. Skepta, among other grime artists, was recently featured on Drake's More Life, and Stormzy, whose debut album charted at #1 in the United Kingdom, is set to play American festivals this summer. But grime is yet to make its mark outside of the UK. It's often mistaken for garage, dubstep, or even hip-hop, and to call it any of those genres really just misses the point. Grime celebrates a heritage and sound that's very specific to inner-city London, where it was born. To understand what that represents, I caught up with a leading voice on grime.
It's quite excuse the pun, it's quite grimy in the club, and it's just got this raw. It's the most raw form of energy in music that we have in the UK. In that it feels, at times it can feel aggressive.
Julie Adenuga is the London DJ on Beats One Radio, and she's from a family with two of grime's biggest names, Skepta and JME. As a radio presenter, she's been bringing grime to listeners since her early days on Rinse FM, a London-based station that played a huge part in the rise of the genre in the early 2000s. It used to be a pirate radio station that featured early MCs, and those people comprised the old guard of grime. Their roots can be traced back to the UK garage scene that was heard both at raves and on popular charts at the time.
Grime evolved out of garage in just a space where people were like, we want to be able to go into a club and hear music and say lyrics and not have people stop dancing. We want that vibe to continue.
A good example of that is Pulse X by The Musical Mob, often called the first official grime track. The song's at about 140 beats per minute, which is a favorite tempo for many grime producers.
A lot of the artists in the US that make hip-hop, or in Canada that make hip-hop, they couldn't sit on a typical grime beat because it's too fast for how they would naturally flow. So for me, a real distinction there is definitely the speed.
Apart from the tempo, early grime tracks have something else in common. Most of them came out of the neighborhood of Bow, London.
Bow E3. My name's Wiley. I come from Bow E3. 07961897033. I'm so E3. Hold the B3's got so much talent. I hope you see.
So that was MC Wiley. He's often referred to as the godfather of grime. And that neighborhood he's talking about, the E3 section of Bow, that neighborhood held an all-star roster of grime talent, including grime's first celebrity.
So Boy in the Corner, it came from Dizzy Rascal, who was an MC, he was quite young at the time. And it was the first grime album that anyone that understood what grime was able to see in the charts in some way, was able to see in a mainstream way.
Despite the success of Boy in the Corner, grime largely remained an underground sound. It mostly played at parties that sometimes ran into trouble.
I wouldn't say there was more trouble in a grime club than there was in any other club, you know. Grime got sort of focused on as the aggressive sort of the catalyst, the starter of what the issues were within club nights and nightlife in London. And we had records like Power by Lethal B.
Pow, yeah, I'm lethal the beat. Pow, if you don't know about me. Pow, better ask someone quickly, cause pow, yeah, I'm pow.
That was banned in all clubs. DJs were not allowed to play that song anywhere in a club because it was seen as something that would cite a riot of some kind.
That discrimination was later formalized in the Form 696. It was a controversial document used by the London police for risk assessment. Until 2009, the form required details on the ethnic makeup of the expected audience in attendance.
It just felt quite, it was patronized and it felt like grime was being sort of penalized, and they were sort of taking precautions to sort of beat around the bush and not directly say that we just want to stop these parties from happening because we feel like they're dangerous.
Even now, more than a decade later, the police continue to use that form to target parties. But shutting down grime events hasn't kept the genre from gaining popularity. In 2015, Kanye West brought an army of MCs, including Skepta and Stormzy, to the stage at the Brit Awards. For many, the performance was a celebration of grime. According to others, the MCs went unnoticed in the shadow of the American hip-hop star. But in the end, the fact that the two worlds came together at a mainstream event says more about their similarities than their differences.
I hate comparing grime to hip hop because I think that's where the lines get really blurry. But one thing that I think stands so strong between those two genres of music is the fact that they're lifestyles now. They're not just songs that you hear on the radio or that you can buy from iTunes. Like, these are actual communities and lifestyles that people live.